Going to be predicting a hypothetical election scenario between one of the senators from Arizona on the Democratic side, Senator Kelly, versus the current Republican vice president on the Republican side, obviously. We'll start out with Nevada and then move eastward. I do think Mark Kelly would be a pretty strong Democratic nominee. He's proven he can win in a state that has not always been the most favorable to Democrats. Arizona, there was a bit of a reversion of that in 2024 when the state went to Trump by a lean margin more than any other swing state. But Mark Kelly has proven he can win in the Southwest. I think J.D. Vance would be, in some ways, a better candidate than Trump, in some ways, not quite as good. It will be interesting to see what a candidate other than Trump does on the national electorate. For over a decade, Trump has been at the top of the Republican Party's ticket, and it will be interesting to see how a Republican other than him can perform on the national landscape. We don't know for sure if it will be Vance versus Kelly. This is just a purely hypothetical outcome, but we'll get started with the first state, like I mentioned, Nevada. Going to put that into the lean blue column. This state, I think, will be a pretty easy one for Democrats to win back. The state even went blue in 2016 when Trump won on the presidential level. It did go red in 2024 while also voting for a Democratic senator, however, so there is a bit of an interesting state, and I think many of the trends that helped Republicans in 2024, that helped them do so well, is going to be because I think a lot of those demographic trends have reversed. We'll have to see if this ends up coming to fruition, especially during the midterms this November. But for now, I'm going to put the state of Nevada into the lean blue column. And then we get to Mark Kelly's home state, the state of Arizona. This one I'm going to put in the lean blue column as well. I don't think I very rarely, if ever, have done this. I think I might have had Pete Buttigieg. No, Pete Buttigieg even won it by a tilt, if I remember correctly. But I think that Mark Kelly would be able to win this crucial state. Democrats, I think in the long run, will outperform in the Sun Belt, that being the four states of Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. Well, I think the Rust Belt, that being the three states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, will remain swing states, but I do think in the long run that they will go further to the right, while the Sun Belt, and not, those are just the competitive states. You may notice I do think Kelly would bring Texas to a lean margin. This isn't too far out of the realm of possibility. In 2018, Beto O'Rourke got it within less than 3 points of a Democrat winning. That was on the Senate level, so definitely a different situation, but still proves my point that I think with the right candidate in the right environment, Democrats could narrow up Texas. I also have Iowa in the lean red column. This isn't too crazy. I am keeping Florida and Ohio, J.D. Vance's home state. I think he would fairly easily be able to win it. So I'm going to put Ohio in the lean red, in the likely red column, and then Florida, I do think would probably end up in the likely red. But like I said with Nevada and Arizona, we don't know what a Republican other than Trump will do for Republicans on the national level. In the era of Trump, the state of Florida has gone further and further to the right. It even voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012 and it was arguably the biggest swing state. So I do think the state will potentially go back towards the middle, but I don't think it will happen for quite a while. Democrats have really lost their foothold in the state of Florida. Even once reliably blue Democratic counties like the Miami-Dade, where Miami is obviously, has even voted red. And I think that Florida will probably remain in the Republican Party's category, even in an environment that is so favorable to Democrats. But that's going to be the call there in Arizona. Getting back to the swing states now, we'll head to Georgia and North Carolina. I do think I will do a split call between Georgia and North Carolina. Going to put the state of Georgia into Mark Kelly's column. I don't think this one will be by quite as high of a margin as I did with Nevada and Arizona, but I do think Kelly would win this state. That's going to be the call there in Georgia. And then I forgot to do the district in the Omaha region. Going to put that into the lean blue column. This district even went blue, and Kamala Harris ended up winning it in 2024. And that was definitely a bad year for Democrats. So I think if they can win the district there, I think that Democrats will most likely be able to win in the district in this hypothetical situation. And then back to the swing states, North Carolina. I'm on the fence. I do think this state, like I mentioned, along with the rest of the Sun Belt, will become more and more Democratic friendly, and it's looking like the Senate election that North Carolina is going to elect a former Democratic governor to the U.S. Senate. So I do think in the long run, North Carolina will become a more reliably well, first purple and then reliably Democrat after a while, but no one knows for sure how the electoral trends will shift. States that used to be regarded as swing states have changed, like I mentioned with Florida. Florida used to be the biggest swing state, and now it's pretty reliably in the Republican Party's category. Georgia used to be a reliably Republican state for quite a while, but now is in 2020 it voted for Biden, and the state has 2 Democratic senators and is looking like they may elect a Democrat to the gubernatorial position this November. But just goes to prove my point. And then we now get to the 3 states that will really determine control of the presidency, that being the Rust Belt. J.D. Vance would need to, we can do some hypothetical election prediction. This isn't necessarily my prediction. J.D. Vance would need to sweep all 3 in order to narrowly win with 279 electoral college votes. I do think that Kelly's best chance probably comes with the state of Wisconsin. This was the closest state in 2024. It ultimately did go to Trump, but it was incredibly close. The Rust Belt was definitely performing better for Harris than the Sun Belt did, which is a bit of an interesting scenario, but that will be the call there in Wisconsin. And then we're going to, and I think Kelly, he's performs well with moderates. I think he would probably be able to win the 3 Rust Belt states, going to put Michigan and Pennsylvania in the Democratic Party's column. I do think J.D. Vance's best hope, probably aside from North Carolina, resides in the state of Pennsylvania. But for now, I do think if the 2, Wisconsin and Michigan, are going blue, I think in the national environment that's really favoring Democrats. We can take a look. The prediction markets currently have Democrats with about a 59 to 41% lead in the betting market. So I do think a Democrat, if the election were to be held today, the majority of Democratic candidates would probably end up being the victor. But that will be the call there, 303 to 235. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.